What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Dom and Pop DC Sports Talk Plus podcast. We could do a whole intro. I'm going to sum this up in one word. Pop, how you doing, man?
Doing well. I take it you're excited about the Eric Bieniemy news.
Yeah, that is great news. Dare I say, I am pretty thrilled about that. I think everybody in DC unanimously is excited. Obviously we put out the pod not too long after the news had dropped, but of course, it takes a little bit of processing time to get these things going and out into the wild. So that was our season recap without Eric Bieniemy. So a lot of negative news, while the rest of DC was feeling pretty positive. But since then, obviously the hire's been announced, and we've got he's done his press conference. He's started his press run. We're starting to get to know who Eric Bieniemy is, and damn, am I excited about it.
No, I mean, there was no doubt about it. I think in terms of just how the whole process went down, I think he was at the top of just about everybody's list, right? So to
Yeah,
go out and actually get, who everyone would have said was the top get. Um, and also, it's just so many people. Why would anybody want to go to DC? Regardless of Eric's particular situation, right? And you hear that, but yet in the end, they were able to get it done, and to be
yeah,
able to get it done, with a lot of still uncertainty of what is actually going to happen with the direction of this franchise, is pretty amazing, and you got to give Ron Rivera a lot of credit, as the leader of the organization, being able to pull that off, and also being open to taking things in a different direction, and in fact, I was probably most impressed by what Ron said, and I think it was when they had the media scrum after the presser, and he was talking about it, and he was talking about how he was even challenging himself to get out of his comfort zone and take things in a
yeah,
different direction, and how impressed he was watching, specifically he said the Chiefs and the 49ers, and that's why it was also interviewing a top candidate from the 49ers as well, but
yeah. Anthony Lynn.
Anthony Lynn, yeah.
Yeah,
So give him credit for going out and landing that, and that's why I think, as much as we might give Ron a hard time about his coaching and some of the coaching decisions and maybe some of the GM decisions on the personnel side, I think at times, as being the leader or the face of the franchise, he is well respected out there,
yeah.
and can pull off things like this, which you got to give him credit for.
Well, and we saw it when he came to town originally, and he brought in Jack as defensive coordinator. And things have been kind of up and down with him the whole way. But we saw that first year, nobody was really thinking about our defense, and all of a sudden, our defense comes on. We make that run, and since then, defense has become the cornerstone of the football team, and it just speaks to Ron in terms of the respect he has around the league. Because I remember my reaction, very similar to Bieniemy. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to go with Bieniemy because that's how I've been saying it. Very similar to Bieniemy coming in here. My reaction was, I thought Jack Del Rio was more on that fringe of head coaching candidates. I thought he was more hanging out in that pool. I thought his defensive coordinator days were behind him. But Ron being Ron brings him in. He's obviously done a great job with the defense thus far. And hopefully we see the same thing happen with Eric Bieniemy here, somebody that you were looking at as one of the top head coaching candidates last season, and then again one of the top head coaching candidates this season. For one reason or another, that doesn't play out. That is one thing I don't want to talk about this podcast. I don't care. I'm excited that he is here. He's our offensive coordinator. He's also assistant head coach. Um, and
Well, I'll make
through
a I'll
all
make
my,
I'll
I
make I'll make a comment about that. Yeah, I get the national media and the overall dialogue of, him not getting the opportunity to be a head coach. And he was certainly very impressive in that presser. And one of the things he walked away with was people were speculating, well, he doesn't interview well. And after that presser, you're going, how the heck is he not interviewing well? And, you know, it's frustrating. I get it that he hasn't gotten that opportunity to be a head coach. Um, there's no doubt the people that want to be outraged about that, I agree with them, right? I mean,
Well, I agree
it
too.
seems crazy, and it seems like if there are other people in his same situation. I mean, I was thinking about it this morning. Let's face it, if Sean McVay was the assistant coach in Kansas City, right, under Reed, and the exact same situation where Reed was the dominant force, Sean McVay would get a head coaching job.
Well, it
So
happened.
Eric Bieniemy doesn't, right?
It
So
happened with Matt Nagy.
I mean,
Matt
Sean McVay, you
Nagy
could
was
argue
there.
had less. Um, he was in the exact same situation with the Redskins.
They
He
took a
was
swing
working
on
for
him.
Jay Gruden. He was working for Jay Gruden. Jay Gruden was calling most of the plays. There was kind of a shared responsibility there. He had only been doing it for about a year, and he got
Yeah,
an opportunity. So it's hard not. But the thing that I don't get is it's pretty obviously why he took the job,
yeah,
right? He was in a situation for 10 years that wasn't getting him where he wanted to be. And he's got an opportunity now to work for a defensive head coach, right? That he really respects. He likes the offensive talent that he sees, although there's big question at quarterback still. And he knows he's going to be the offensive coordinator and assistant head coach. It's a promotion, people. It
yep.
is a promotion.
So that's so
I
I
mean,
want to
that's
I want
why
to
he took the
clarify a little
job.
bit. I want to clarify a little bit. When I said I don't want to talk about it, I meant more the angle that people are taking that are like, oh, there's a reason he wasn't being. I'm getting a lot of enemy hate in terms of even for this job. It's like, oh, Washington, blah blah blah. There's a reason he left and he went to Washington. There's a reason he had no other options. I don't even want to hear that. There's You are grasping at straws because you're looking for something negative to say about this guy who has the most impressive offensive coordinator resume, probably in the last decade, and certainly um, is more than qualified, overqualified for this job, and in my opinion, overqualified for the job as a head coach. So I don't want to hear that negativity related to this at this point. Give credit where credit is due. I was on here last week talking about this team's going to go nowhere with Rivera. I have no hope. And I got to sit here and eat crow and say, you know what? I root for the name on the front of the jersey, not the back. Ron Rivera, all the props in the world to you. So I guess that's kind of our next little bullet point. I want to give all the credit in the world to Rivera for getting Bieniemy in here, for seeing the process through, and for delivering. I mean, that is the
Yeah,
biggest win. And when you look at it on paper, we have Bieniemy can be the X's and O's guy. They said his baby in Kansas City. There was a great interview. I forget the name of the guy that he did, but on John Keim's podcast, he actually interviewed with a guy from Kansas City. And so, what was Bieniemy's role? And he said his baby was the game plan. That was what he did. And everybody talks about how brilliant the Chiefs are when they have 2 weeks, how brilliant the Chiefs are when they have the opportunity to game plan and prepare, and how they come into every game ready to
right.
go. So if we have Bieniemy in place as the offensive X's and O's guy and as the enforcer, as the guy that's dropping the hammer, we have Ron leading the men, managing relationships, and then we have Del Rio taking care of the defense, making sure they're taking care of stuff. Coach Z on the defensive line, along with Ryan Kerrigan, doing what they do. This is a serious coaching staff. This is a way that I think, as a matter of fact, this is the only way that I think things can work under Rivera. And Rivera has went and he's adjusted.
Who's doing clock management, timeouts, and challenge flags?
I don't want to talk about that. Way to just take the I'm here, hype it up. For the first time in the history of the Diamond Pop podcast, I'm here absolutely juiced on Ron Rivera.
I
And
can't.
you just take me out at the knees.
No, I think you bring up. I think you bring up. I think you bring up great points. I think it
Yeah.
does take some responsibility. If anything, because of Scott Turner being a new offensive coordinator and unproven. I think
Yeah.
Ron had to be a little too involved in the offense, and maybe with with Bieniemy being an assistant head coach and being elevated, maybe some of those duties go to him. Maybe
Yeah.
he's more in the ear of let's challenge that, or we need a timeout here, or all those kind of things. Maybe he takes on a bit more of that role. So I do think it gives, gives Ron more of a chance to be in a CEO type role. Now, we'll get into it in a bit. I mean, the ownership situation for sure could shift a lot of that around and change a lot of that going forward. But
Yeah.
I agree. It's look, all you can do, and you know it's an off-season win. We seem to be good at off-season wins. It's without a doubt an off-season
Yeah.
win. When you look at it on paper, it's everybody's top candidate for the role. It is a promotion. It does make sense, I think, from an Eric Bieniemy, to sit there and say, well, why would you leave the Super Bowl champs? Well, you got to give the man credit for having the courage, to leave that comfortable situation. And he even talked about it and bet on himself to be able to take this team to the next level. And
Yep.
there's every chance this is a 1 year situation, because if it goes really really well, he's likely going to get that head coaching job finally. And
Yeah.
if it goes poorly and there's new ownership, there's likely going to be coaching change. So that's probably, if there's any like downer about it, is it feels like much more of a 1 year deal. But it's a great get, and he just, I had never really heard much of him speaking before, and what a presser, right? 10 out of 10, and
Unbelievable.
then it was amazing how they had. Well, I guess they had him mic'd up, but the interviews that took place afterwards and his interactions with the players, and that was another very cool thing, the number of players
Yeah.
that showed up for the press conference and came in the front row. Yeah, it talks a little bit about, I think it speaks to Ron Rivera, right, and the team unity and the family atmosphere that they've built with the players and how much they want to see things work out here. But some of that content that you got, if you haven't checked it out and you're a Commanders fan, you got to check it
Yeah.
out. I think it's on YouTube or on the Commanders website, of like him being mic'd up and talking to all the different reporters in the scrum and interacting with the players, and then the interviews with Ron and Jason right afterwards. It was some great stuff. It was hard not to get
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yep, and it takes me back. You talk about the familial atmosphere there. You look at that shot of all the guys. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Sadiq Charles, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. You take a look at those guys hanging out in the front row before the meeting starts, like they're waiting to go do it. And it brings me back to like the days of being on the soccer team and like, oh, we have like a parents meeting or something like that, and you're just there hanging out with your boys. Like that's what it feels like. And to
Right.
have Bieniemy step into that and outline, like, hey, I came here because something I thought. I want to touch on two things before we move on to the elephant in the room, which is how something I thought was really cool that Bieniemy said was, he said there are skill position guys in Washington that we scouted and we interviewed with in Kansas City that I liked and wanted. And so I'm excited to be here and to work with these guys. So big kikatsa to everybody that was saying, oh, Washington's receivers are slow and he's not going to have what he needs to
Lazy
work with.
reporting. Lazy
You're,
reporting.
you're high. We have, if you want to say top 7, that would be conservative wide receiver groups in the NFL, and we have a better wide receiver group than Kansas City, 100%. So
Well,
anybody,
stats don't lie. We were clocked as the third fastest receiver group on the field in the NFL
yeah. I
last
mean,
year.
Curtis
That's a
Curtis
statistic.
Samuel runs a 4.31, three
Yeah.
one, and Terry's right behind him at a 4.34. Anyways, the second thing I wanted to touch on that I'm most excited about, we talk about what do you think this will mean on the field. It was pointed out on B. Mitch and Finley. I'm forgetting the exact name of the formation, but over the last 5 years, there's a stat that tracks how much uh, each offense uses a specific formation. Now, to nobody's surprise, over the last 5 years, Kansas City has been a top five, probably top three offense every year, right? They range in that formation over the 5 years. They've ranged from the highest usage in the NFL to the 24th highest usage in the NFL. And you know what has not fluctuated is the fact that they've been top five, probably top three every year. That to me is the mark of brilliant coaching because anybody can put together, okay, you put a great quarterback back there, and then you put the best tight end of all time, and then you put Tyreek Hill there, and we're going to do the same thing every game, and we're just going to key on the fact that we have the best players. And they probably still would have been top five every year. But the fact that he was able to adjust the amount he adjusted per game, per season, per all the skill position players, it's a carousel over there in Kansas City at wide receiver, aside from Tyreek Hill for the years that he was there. And look at what they did this year. Look at what they did this year. They were unstoppable. The fact that he was able to do that, I am so excited. And what I think that will mean for us on the field is we're going to see some real game planning. We're going to see some real creative usage of our skill players, the stuff that we were craving last year. Get Curtis Samuel out in the flat. Get Jahan Dotson out in the flat. Let him make the plays. Get the ball out quick. This is a West Coast offense, which means one read, two read, balls out, and you know where the ball's going before the snap. So I'm very, 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 very excited. I think it's going to mean really great things for us. And frankly, if you look at the numbers, we can't get much worse. So it's just a question of how much better are we going to
Well,
get.
they're unknowns, right? I mean, it's the first time that he's in this position of being in full control of the offense. We've talked about it before. I think there is the play caller is like the 12th man on the field, and you never know completely how that's going to go because it's all the game planning that you can do, which I have no doubt will be a huge step up when you actually have to execute in terms of actually play calling and feeling the game and knowing what to go to next. Yeah, it's a whole nother level. But
Yeah.
having said that, to me, Andy Reid, is just a great offensive mind, right? And the best in the game. And if somebody has been, Andy Reid's offensive coordinator and right hand person, and Andy Reid talked about how influential he was there. So did Pat Mahomes. Yeah, that's all I need to know, right? And there's no reason on paper this should be a great success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So super excited about that. Obviously, let's get into the elephant in the room here. Sam Howell, quarterback. There's been a widespread of reporting in terms of how that played into this situation. Some people are saying there's no way Bieniemy would come to DC. Let's go to the extreme on one side. One extreme is there's no way Bieniemy would come to DC if Sam Howell was actually the plan. So they have to be planning on going to get Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr, a real quarterback. Real quarterback. The other side of the extreme is Bieniemy, and this is an actual quote. Bieniemy said, at one point, Patrick Mahomes sat for an entire year and he only had one career start. And he won that game too at the end of the year. So I like what I see in Sam, and I'm excited to work with him. We have to see what he's got. So on the other side, you think Bieniemy's all the way bought in, and he thinks Howell's the next Mahomes. If we make Howell being the next Mahomes a 10 and going to get Lamar Jackson 0, where do you think Bieniemy and the Commanders land on that scale?
I don't think anyone thinks that Howe is the next Mahomes.
You know what I mean though. If we put it on a spectrum.
That's what you said.
10
what you mean is what you say.
It's the internet, man. You got to expand on these things a little bit. 10, we're definitely rolling with Howell. Bieniemy came here because he loves Sam Howell and he's excited to work with them. 0, we're going to go get somebody else. There's no way Howell starts. Where do you land on that?
I don't know about a number, but I'll say in terms of how I feel, it does seem, and you hear some of the insider information. I know JP Finley, shout out, has pretty said consistently that they're all in on going with Hal, and so is
Yeah.
Bieniemy, and he's rarely wrong. You know, I know the people out there have a love hate relationship with JP. I think JP does an amazing
It's all
job,
love here.
and
It's all
he's,
love here.
and he nails things. When he says this is what's going to happen, it more often does. And so I mean, it all signs are pointing to Hal. I did see a little crack in the Bieniemy um, one of his interviews, I think it was with the NFL Network, he was talking up Sam Howell. He was really positive, but he did pull back just a little bit, say, I'm still in the evaluation process. So he
Yeah.
stopped just short of going completely all in. I think it's I'm good with giving Sam Howell the opportunity. I will say it's scary, right? Because it's just you don't know. There was even one scout that was talking about how he compares to quarterbacks in the draft this year, and was actually giving Sam Howell some favorable
Yeah.
evaluation over the quarterbacks in the draft. So if they truly feel that way, and you look at that option of we got this kid versus having to move up in the draft and give up a bunch of assets to draft a rookie. Let's give this guy a try. Let's try to get a solid veteran backup. I'm okay with the strategy, but it seems like the fan base is behind it, which you could say what you want. It means something, right?
Yeah.
Hey, right. Um, but it's there's just no way to know, right? So I wouldn't be shocked if they ended up shifting directions and trying to make a big splash at QB. There's some people out there reporting, well, maybe this is just a big okey doke, and he's just saying this to kind of keep them under the radar, and then they go in and swipe up, one of the big names. You know, if it's someone like a Lamar who's in the prime of his career, swing for the fences. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
If it's an Aaron Rodgers and we've got to give up that kind of capital to get somebody that's towards the end of his career,
Oh,
no, no, thank you. I'll take my chances with Sam Howell. So I would say all signs are pointing it to Hal. I'm okay with it. There's cautious optimism there, I'd put it that way. But
yeah.
it wouldn't shock me if things suddenly shifted in a different direction.
I like it. I like it. I'm pro going with Howell. I think let's swing for the fences with what we got. Also, just in terms of looking at the roster and looking at the cap space, we don't have a ton of cap space. Clearing Carson will take care of that. Obviously, if we tag, here's the problem: we clear Carson and then we tag Duran Payne. We're those two numbers. I think we're only going to get like another 8 million back on the cap out of that. So that's a big right there. Just to do what we anticipate the two biggest moves are probably going to look like. We don't have a lot of cap space there. So especially when
Yeah,
we're
I think
looking at offensive line,
bringing back Payne by all indications is a priority, and that would you're right.
yeah,
That's a piece of the puzzle that would make you lean towards Hal's the guy because he's
and just
inexpensive.
if you look at the way things have gone for teams that have built success out of not much. And we're in the not much category right now. It almost always goes with as a matter of fact, it always goes with a young quarterback, except for Tom Brady. And Tom Brady's done. It's over.
Yeah,
There's one of Tom Brady ever. There's the reason he's the GOAT. There's the reason he's the best football player of all time. Best quarterback, at least for sure, head and shoulders. So, unless Patrick Mahomes wants to come to DC, the statistically most likely option is we go with somebody young. And we have somebody young in the building that we believe in. I want to briefly, people are saying, oh, why didn't Ron go to Howell earlier if they believed in him? It is such an easy thing to explain that Ron's plan was for Howell to redshirt and then start. That was the
totally
plan the
agree.
whole time.
Totally agree.
The whole time. And then the situation that he was in at the end of the season, he named Heineke the starter, remember? He named him the
Right.
starter. He met with Heineke, and I guarantee you how that conversation went was Heineke said, I'm not going to come here and do your little song and dance for you. You moved away from me. And especially if you want Howell to come in the second half, just start Sam,
Right.
please. And so he got his hand forced. He started Howell and he looked good. So let's move
Yeah.
on. He has 11 NFL completions. I understand. But the plan was to redshirt him for an entire year and see if he's ready to start or have him compete to start. Everything's moving according to plan. I don't think that, playing in week 18 shows a lack of plan or a lack of understanding or why didn't he come in the must win against Cleveland. I don't think any of that plays into this, in my opinion. I don't think a lot of people are using that as an excuse to say Ron doesn't believe in Howell.
Well, but
I
but
don't.
at
I
some
don't agree
point,
with.
and I realize, especially at the quarterback position, maybe this coaching staff hasn't given us the biggest reason to trust them. But
Yeah,
they're the ones that have seen him in practice every day. And they can tell. It's kind of like I put it, when Terry McLaurin, if you remember his rookie season, and all of a sudden, even before he played a snap, they didn't even actually play him in the preseason because he had a minor injury, and they were
yeah,
saving him for the regular season. Like, they were saying, this guy is the real deal. What a
yeah,
find, and in a sense, we got lucky to get him. And I think they feel that they've got something there from what they've seen from him all year.
yeah,
And I agree. The plan was to redshirt him and not put that kind of pressure on him. But if he's QB1 now, then all that protection is off, and it's time to roll. And if nothing else, it'll be fun to watch. And I'm very much rooting for the kid.
yeah. And I think that's about it for the Howell thing. To be honest with you, I'm 100% agreeing with you. I don't buy the whole he should have started against Cleveland if Ron believed in
No,
him because it's just like what a stupid sentence that is. Taylor Heineke should have just kept starting. That's what should have happened there. It would have been just as dumb to go to Howell as it was to Wentz,
the
in my
the the
opinion.
thing that,
But
in hindsight, the thing that should have been done is Taylor should have been given the vote of confidence and been told, it's your job. You got it the rest of the year.
yeah,
Sink or swim. That's what we're going to do. But we've talked about that a lot already.
yeah. So I think
Water
that's
under
a
the bridge. I mean, I think
agreed.
I'll end the talk this way. Even the last podcast, and I think I give our Ravens insider credit. He made a comment on the podcast. 8-8-1 is not a disaster, and 8-8
Yeah,
and one with the quarterback play we had last year. If we can just, you know, get that situation improved and get the offensive coaching situation improved and beef up the offensive line, it's not hard to see that 8 wins turn into 10 wins. And a 10-win season for this team is almost parade worthy from
yeah,
where we've been. So
yep.
I'll leave it at that.
I mean, that's the thing is you look at a
We're
hundred
overly
percent.
negative sometimes, as a fan base, not
Yeah,
you and me, but as a fan base, right?
I 100% agree with you, and that's what I'm trying to get across here. Like we've had years where we've bottomed out, but Ron has stabilized this thing. We're hanging out in the
Right.
middle, and the middle's not good enough. I
No,
agree, and we should be ahead of where we are, and we've talked about that a lot. But it is not unrealistic to say, okay, in a year where Chase Young is coming back at full strength, we should have some time to rebuild the offensive line. We're going to have all the same skill position guys, best offensive mind in the NFL as an offensive coordinator, not a head coach, of course. Um, we're going to have some real opportunity next year to take a step forward. And it's really just going to come down to, can Howell just be good enough? That's all we need is good enough. He doesn't need to come out and be Patrick Mahomes. If he can come out and be Kirk Cousins, I mean, that team, in my opinion, probably wins 10, 11 games with Kirk Cousins last year. If he can
I
just come
agree.
out and be Kirk Cousins, we'll be in good shape.
I
So
agree.
let's move on. Let's talk about ownership. That's the next topic for us, and we'll hit on it quick. There's a lot of speculation going around. This is the time of year where stuff's going to start breaking. There might be an emergency pod coming down the line for the
I like
boys.
it.
Might be 4 a.m. on the West
The
Coast,
shirtless emergency pod.
getting weird with it, popping champagne. Dad, do you have your engraved champagne bottle with Dan Snyder's name on it yet? For
No,
when he's gone. I don't
no.
either. But we might have to pick some of that up. But yeah, so long story short, Bezos has hired, I'm not a finance expert, but he's hired the people that he would need to hire in order to make this move. That's what's
Yeah.
been reported, essentially. Um, so, what do we make of this? People are comparing this to the last sale, which is the Denver situation, and which basically poor Josh Harris was there, wanted to buy the team, getting his ducks in a row, excited about it, similarly to how it's looking here. And then at the last minute, the Waltons, owners of Walmart, swipe right in, say, we have more money than you. We'll just buy whatever we want. And they buy the team. It's looking like Jeff Bezos and maybe our boy Jay-Z is going to team up and take care of that here in DC. Pot, what do you think about that? It's looking eerily similar.
I think in general though, I'm uncomfortable about the whole thing because I think
Yeah.
that, we talked about this getting done quickly, but we're almost in March and it seems like there's more uncertainty about the whole thing than ever before because, you know, Dan sent an unrealistically high price at $6 billion. Apparently the bidders are coming out at 5.5. Apparently the bidders are struggling to, because of the price, meet that 30% threshold that the primary owner needs to have, which is a dumb rule that the NFL should change,
Yeah.
by the way. It's a very, I think, old rule. And then there's a lot of rumors about, even today I was reading quite a bit after the Bezos news that Dan doesn't want to work with Bezos at all. But it does seem like the NFL is forcing Snyder's hand,
Yeah.
where he said, "Look, I'm not selling for anything less than $6 billion." I think eventually it's going to work thing out, but as always with Dan Snyder, it is not going to be easy. He's going to dig in. He's going to make it difficult, and that's the part that I guess we're just going to have to wait out a bit and probably be a little bit patient. I mean, you're right; it could change tomorrow. I think the thing that was interesting about the Bezos news, and one of our friends, rightfully so, said, "I'll believe it when I see it." And I kind of agree with him, right?
Yeah.
Believe it when I see it. But it was reported by the Washington Post. And who owns
Good
the
pull
Washington
there.
Post?
Good pull
So
there.
it's real. I mean, I can
Yeah.
tell you that it's real.
Yeah.
Whether or not, and again, the hope is that the NFL is going to have a big voice in this, and if they want Bezos to be the owner, he's going to be the owner,
Yep.
and we'll see. I don't know that I really care if it's Bezos or Josh Harris. Quite frankly, I don't know which one would be a better owner or not.
Yeah.
You just want to see it get done and get to that next step, and let's hope it happens. It was amazing. You had the Bieniemy thing. Terps are getting big wins. Bezos announcements comes across. It was like, wow, what a day.
Everything's going crazy.
Everything's going great.
Yeah, so with the Bezos thing, I don't care who buys the team. I just care that somebody buys it. Bezos obviously has a ton of perks from a fan experience in
Yeah,
terms of you've got the richest man in the world, has all the access to everything in the world in terms of a stadium that he could build, in terms of access to merchandise, in terms of just overall fan experience and access. That would be amazing. That would be so cool. But then again, I think if you talk to the average sports fan, they probably know next to nothing about the owner of their football team or their basketball team or their
if they're
hockey
lucky.
team or whatever their favorite team is, because it should be irrelevant. It's not supposed to be this big headlining thing, but because Dan Snyder is such a jackass, it's always a thing for us. So I'm ready to just get rid of that, not care who the owner is, if it's Bezos or if it's Josh Harris or whoever. I really don't care. Let's just sell this thing. I think it's going to sell. I think the genie is just too far out of the bottle at this point. Somebody's going to step up and give him $6 billion if that's what he's asking for. And if not, the NFL wants it to happen. And I think the worst case scenario is maybe Dan holds on to this thing for a year longer and we
No.
have to go through the process of the NFL forcing him out. I think that's absolute worst case scenario. But for some perspective, September of last year, first game of the offseason, first game of the regular season, we were all thinking we are doomed to Dan Snyder for the rest of our lives. Like, I seriously am thinking, am I ever going to have a chance at getting rid of this guy other than him dying of natural causes late in my life? Just doing the math, running the numbers. So I'm just grateful to be in the position we're in. It's going to get done at some point. I just encourage all Commanders fans, remain positive. It's going to happen. And I'm just excited to be here.
I like this Dominic much better than last week's Dominic, I got to say.
Yeah, that's
But
where
I
I'm
think one quick tie-in, real quick, because I know we're long on time. But that's why the quarterback situation, in my mind, it's still got a little bit of a wild card to it because if a Bezos, however the hell you say it, comes in,
yeah, Bezos.
he could quickly want to make that big swing for a Lamar. So we're going to have to see how that all plays out.
People are going to be building statues of Jeff Bezos. I
But
mean,
we
out
can
of
go,
paper,
it's like the
mache.
turtle for the Terps. We go rub his head.
Yeah.
Shiny head.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's that, man. That's pretty much that on the ownership situation. We just kind of have to wait and see. It's all just further developed versions of wait and see. I think another reason the rumors are piling up now and more uncertainty is getting stirred up, honestly, not to sound too tinfoil hatty here, but we got nothing to talk about. The regular season's over. There's no football being
Oh,
played.
yeah.
So everybody's trying to stir up drama. Everybody's trying to keep you reading their outlets. So the New York Post is going to come out and tell you one thing, and then the Washington Post is going to tell you the other thing. I'm going to believe what the guy who owns the paper, what his paper is putting out there. So I'm going to go with that, personally.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Quickly, maybe we wanted to spend a little more time on this, but we're so excited about the other things. Let's just give a quick shout out. DC United starting their season. Pop, let you handle this segment. These are your departments here. DC United and Terps basketball. Real quick, love Kevin Willard. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, Kevin Willard is great. So, quick
Real
kickouts
deal.
of the week is the fact that I've got to purchase an Apple TV subscription to watch DC United and MLS, but I'm more than likely going to dig into the wallet and do that here real
There you
soon.
go.
The first game of the season is just
Wait,
about
important question. If Jeff Bezos buys the team and you have to buy Amazon Prime to watch the games, does he get a kickouts of the week or is he forgiven of that?
He might get a kickouts of the week. It's hurting my pocket.
Fair. I respect it. Continue. Sorry, I just thought that was funny.
But anyway, I mean, hopefully new season kicks off. There's quite a few new names on the roster. I won't get into a full roster breakdown since we're late here in the pod. But good luck to DC United. Of course, Wayne Rooney has come back to coach the team. And yeah, just a quick shout out to Terp basketball. I guess by the time this pod gets released, they'll have already played the Northwestern game. Another sellout tomorrow. Big game against second place team in the Big Ten, which could put the Terps in a tie for second if they beat Northwestern, and we could protect that undefeated record at home. And you're right, Kevin Willard's done a great job. They far exceeded expectations. So just a couple of quick shout outs there, two of our favorite teams on the Dom and Pop show.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely just love what you see from Kevin Willard. If you need that, if you ever need some motivation, just go watch that clip of everybody freaking out in the locker room after that Purdue win at home. Super excited.
I turned to our good friend Ken. We'll give him a quick shout out, pod supporter. And we were driving back from the game. We go to most of the Maryland games, and I just said, "How the hell do we get this guy? We are so lucky." The guy, he just, by all indications, and you hear him on his interview, and he's just so positive, like, in terms of developing the players, like a Julian Reese, who looked really rough at the beginning of the season. I know you said, who's this number 10? And he's by far our one of our top 2 players and one of the best centers in the Big Ten right now. His
Yeah.
ability to develop players and stay positive and motivate them, they far exceeded anything, and hopefully it's a lot more years to come in the program, and I think it will be with Kevin Willard. Great job.
I'm just excited to see some fire and some passion back on that court. I grew up on Gary Williams. That was the cornerstone of Maryland basketball for me. If I had to put one word into it, was passion. And we were devoid of that for the entirety of the time between Williams and Willard. And I'm so excited to see that back out there. That's all I have to say about him. I'm over the moon. If you want to, if things don't go so hot and you want to come coach the Commanders next season, I'll put my name in the ring for you, Willard. I'm all about it. But I say we wrap this thing up. Longer pod today, guys. So you're welcome. We're sorry, depending on your preferences of how you like to listen to it. But I personally think when I've been seeing all the Bieniemy pods, I've been looking for the long ones because I'm just so excited. I want to keep listening to it. So, guys, check it out. Enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know in the comments how you're feeling about Eric Bieniemy, how you're feeling about Kevin Willard, how you're feeling about DC United, how you're feeling about Jeff Bezos buying the team, the Washington Prime. Let us know about all of that in the comments. And without further ado, let's wrap this thing up. I've been Dom.
Let's pop.
Thanks for another great week.